Hello and welcome back to Deep Sleep Creeps YouTube channel. Today we are going to be listening to 5 Skinwalker and Wendigo horror stories. If you enjoyed listening, please consider like, commenting and subscribing. About 2 years ago, I lived in an old house outside of city limits in western Alabama. Wild hogs are considered a nuisance in this part of the country, and thus are a year-round game. The land wasn't mine, but it was a legal hunting ground, so my landlord gave me and my friends explicit permission to take care of any hogs we came across. So a lot of the time, especially during the winter when this encounter took place, I was posted up on my back porch with a cigar and a gun, either by myself or with company. This land wasn't very clear. In fact, we only had about 20 feet from the porch to the tree line. Then it would go down a hill and the brush would get thicker. So our hunting was just being quiet and looking for the beady eyes of hogs in the foliage when we heard rustling. So, all that being said, one night during my porch sitting, I heard some rustling. I started scanning the woods for this hog and eventually did come across a set of white, beady eyes. They weren't a hog's eyes though, because these were eye level with mine. As my eyes continued to adjust, the rest of the creature started coming into view. It was tall, thin, and had long, spindly arms and legs. Its entire body was completely black. I couldn't make out any other facial features besides the eyes, but what I could make out was that this thing was actually a good ways down the hill, so the fact that it was still at eye level with me meant it was likely around 10 feet tall. It started up the hill, moving towards me, and I had this feeling in my gut that 45 caliber bullets probably weren't going to do much here. So I slowly collected my things and headed back into the house. It didn't make any sound as it moved, other than the slight crunch of leaves. As it clambered the hill, it somewhat stopped at the tree line, then turned and walked along the edge of it. It bobbed and lurched a bit as it walked, kind of how some large birds bob their head as they move. That was the most terrified I had been in a long while, and as the title says, this wasn't the only encounter. My hunting buddies and I all saw it several times, walking through the trees a good bit away from the house, sometimes turning to look at us. My roommate that moved in later that same year walked once outside and saw it right up against the porch, looking right down at her. It never tried to attack anyone or even acted aggressively, so we eventually stopped being as scared, though still very cautious, and started calling him Big Boy. I've told a couple other friends about this. One of them said the description and behavior matched something called a California Dark Watcher. I did my research, and as much as this creature matches up, this was on the opposite end of the continent. I'm still not 100% sure what it was that I saw, but I am 100% sure I saw it. Multiple people did. Edit. I also forgot to mention that the woods went completely silent every time we would see it, even the bugs. Things normally get quiet when there's a predator in the area, but I mean complete and total silence. So I was recently reading stories on Reddit of cryptids, and I came across one today that seemed eerily similar to an event that happened to me not too long ago. So for context, I was 16 at the time, and my family would go hunting at a deer lease in Comfort, Texas. This was my first year hunting a stand by myself, which I was really excited about. So we got to camp, and first day and night pass, I saw no deer. I was a little disappointed to have not seen any deer at the stand either time I went out. Flash forward to next day, I decide to hunt a different stand in the morning, on the other side of camp, tons of doe, but no bucks, so I went back to camp and decided to try the stand from the previous day one, more time. Keep in mind, my first hunt of the day takes place from around 5 AM to 10 AM, and my night hunts from around 5 PM till sundown. So I have my dad drop me off at the stand, and he wishes me luck. I thank him, and he drove off. The hunt was going great. But for some reason, the bucks seemed to be running towards my feed. I thought they were running after doe because they were in rut or something. Anyway, I finally see a big 12 point and I got it. So I'm waiting in my stand now for my dad to come pick me up. The sun starts to completely set, so I get out of my stand to go walk and stand by my deer for pickup. But as I was walking, something I hadn't seen in my stand was in the woods, to the left of me. I heard it first rustling and then steps. Finally, I saw its head peer out from behind the tree. A massive buck is what I thought at first. Excited, I got onto one knee and shot at it. Not even putting my ear protection on. The shot 1/10 the distance from the other deer I shot. Yet when I thought I hit it dead in the chest, it stood there totally unfazed, before stepping out completely and just staring at me. Here I started to panic. This massive buck is staring me down after I shot at it. It's going to charge me. I reload my rifle and take another shot, and I reload it again and take another. Still nothing, as it stared at me. It tilted its head as if taunting me or trying to understand my desperation. Its eyes were lifeless, and it began to walk towards me, and I finally closed my eyes and shot at it one last time. I heard it jump, and it slowly walked back into the tree line, its eyes not leaving me once until it was fully back into the woods. The thing that haunted me even more is I swore. I saw it smirk at me as it was leaving. Not 10 seconds later, I hear my dad's truck. We throw my deer in truck, and my dad asked what all the shooting was. I told him the story, and he brushed it off as crappy aim. After a while, I kinda convinced myself of that too. But now later, as I have shot deer off the truck bed while it's moving, I've taken the same kneeling shot at worse angles and hit it. And now I read a story about something called a not deer, and it just seemed so accurate to what I had seen. At first I thought maybe a skinwalker, but I don't know now. I haven't seen it out there since, but I was wondering what people thought of it. Was it just crappy aim, or did I really experience something supernatural?
Skinwalker Wendigo in my area. Before I start writing, I'd like to preface that I've always been one to love the paranormal, ghosts, demons, etc. But cryptids are not my cup of tea. I wouldn't consider myself a hunter though, as I don't go poking the bear. I just like to dabble in research just in case something stumbles upon me, which I fear has happened. Thursday, August 17th, at around 2:30 in the morning, I believe, I woke up to this loud screeching sound. It was sharp and short. It came in intervals of 4 and then would stop for about 30 seconds and then kick up again. It did this about 3 times before it started to die down. Fortunately, I was able to record 2 of the single sounds. Immediately, I sent my friend, he will remain anonymous, the audio. He's really big on this kind of stuff, and he said that the sounds were coming from a Wendigo. Obviously, I'm here almost peeing myself because the screeching woke me up, and I've never had anything like this wake me up before. I've been living in the mountains since 2019, so I've heard my fair share of animal noises, and this wasn't like anything I've ever heard before. The friend just told me to make sure my windows are locked and keep an eye on my pets, which never leave the house anyways. I feel I should mention that I do have chickens, but they are more my stepmom's responsibility. Anyway, after that I ended up reading a little on the creature, and then ended up going back to sleep. Because at this point it was 3 in the morning. Even being super into the supernatural, I have never experienced their presence. It's one thing to hear stories, but being at the telling end of that story is so different and sends chills down my spine. Does anyone else also have a story to share so I don't feel so alone? Or advice on how I can keep myself safe? I'm not one to poke the bear, but if I just leave it alone, it should leave me alone too, right?
I don't even know if this was a cryptid sighting or not, or what it could have been. I live by a lake in Southern California, small city that you pass through. Never heard any stories of monsters or cryptids around here. The worst we have to deal with is bears, bobcats, cougars, mountain lions, etc. Me and my girl went for a late night walk to the lake to sit on the sand for some drinks and other activities.
There's an entrance to the lower lake that you can walk into from the road. It was dark, and you couldn't see the grass 5 yards away from you unless you were on it. There was enough light to see the road, but nothing else. I'm about to be 30 soon, and have lived here my whole life, so I know what a bear or big cat sounds like. What we heard was none of that. From the shadows in the grass, we heard this deep, guttural growl, almost like it was telling us, "You're not supposed to be here." I stopped me and my girl from walking any further, and when I tell you the primal fear, I got that we shouldn't be here, and whatever that was, wanted us out, immediately. We sprinted so fast back to our home, hearts racing and adrenaline rushing. By the time we got back home, we slammed the door shut, locked it and tried to catch our breaths. Once we caught our breaths, my girl later tells me that she saw 2 red eyes in the direction of the growl. We had no flashlights and no light sources nearby to give eyes glowing like that. Even just typing this, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Not sure if it was cryptid or not, but the fear of this thing that clearly saw us and we didn't see was intense. It was a different type of sensation of fear. It was a type of fear where something was unexplainable here, where when I come across a bear, my senses typically tell me to remain calm, but this was different. I'm on here because what I saw was odd by Malibu, Santa Monica Mountains in a secluded beach about 2 weeks ago. I wanted you guys to help me narrow down which cryptid or animal it can potentially be. Anyway, one night my friend and I got bored and decided to go for a nighttime walk near the pier. The weather was cool and calm, and it was overall a peaceful night to walk, in general. Anyway, the night it happened, I randomly got the chills, and I couldn't stop staring to a direction of the hills behind me, and I asked my friend if we can go home since I had a feeling we were being watched, and he kept reassuring me nothing is going on. But still, I insisted on going home. It was 12 a.m., anal 1 a.m. I finally convinced my friend after a couple hours of walking to head home. And once we started the walk back, I saw a coyote which didn't alarm me since it was just one, and I've seen them before in packs, and walked right past it. What freaked me out was the thing travelling with it. Once we walked a little while and had some distance from where we saw the coyote, I turned around, and at first I didn't see it clearly in the beginning due to it remaining in the dark, avoiding lampposts, but whatever that thing was turned to its side, and since I was able to see the coyote next to it by comparison, it was way larger than it. It had no hair, bald, it was pale, no snout and humanoid looking. If that thing would have stood up, I swear it would have been 7'8", and its back wasn't completely flat like a dog, it was hunched over. I saw it having huge nails or fingers, I'm not sure, and its legs weren't dog-like, but a more humanoid appearance. While it sniffed and followed us where we walked by earlier, I was so afraid because how did I not see it earlier? Or even hear it since it was huge, and that colour would have stood out to me in the shrub. Another weird detail I noticed was how everything was creepily quiet. All the crickets and bugs from earlier just disappeared, and sudden mist surrounded us, even though I am fully aware that it was happening near the coastline. But it felt abnormal and just creepy. We remained calm and just kept casually walking, hoping not to get into a running chase with it. We eventually made it safely to our truck and sped off. So what do you guys think it was?